Hello, my name is Jeff Moore. Welcome to this episode of Heroes and Droids, where we are going to finish up the first season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds and discuss episode 9 and 10. With me today is Chad Hunt. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Can't wait to talk about these last two episodes. They're just amazing.
Yeah, they were. I thought they were great. Mm-hmm. I got so much excitement from these. So let's just hit it right away here. So episode 9 and 10. Episode 9 was called All Those Who Wander and aired June 30th. And episode 10, the title is A Quality of Mercy, aired July 7th. Episode 9 was directed by Christopher J. Byrne and episode 10 was directed by Chris Fisher. And they are both written by Akiva Goldsman and Alex Kurtzman. And is that correct?
As far as I know, yeah.
So the synopsis of episode 9, the U.S.S. Enterprise crew comes face to face with their demons and scary monsters 2 when their landing party is stranded on a barren planet with a ravenous enemy. And in episode 10, the season 1 finale, just as Captain Pike thinks he's figured out how to escape his fate, he's visited by his future self, who shows him the consequences of his actions.
Yes,
and that was. These are both awesome. So I don't know. Let's go. We'll start with episode 9. All Those Who Wonder, and try to stay away from spoilers to start off right away, and just talk about first impressions.
Okay.
So, what did you think of episode 9?
What I thought of episode 9. Are we going to leave the card up?
Probably not.
I want to be looking right at you when I say what I got to say. Episode 9 was a pleasant surprise, I'll say. I can't recall when we've ever gotten a straight up horror episode of Star Trek ever in any of the series, but this is filling in some loose ends from a previous episode or a continuation of it. And boy, oh boy. And it's reminiscent to a lot of sci-fi horror films.
Yep.
And done very well too. And we're able to tie a lot of these things into the Star Trek mythos, which I thought was just a cool thing. And we got to sort of see a reinvention of an old Star Trek species in this. And I so enjoyed it. I really did. It was just, if you're a fan of sci-fi horror in any way, shape, or form, even if you're not a fan of Star Trek, this was an excellent horror film or horror episode with sci-fi in it. And I'm probably being redundant, saying the same thing over and over again. I'm trying not to spoil it, and in doing so, I'm just repeating myself. But yeah, just a great episode. Great episode.
Yeah, it is. I thought that too. This is like straight up horror, and it is reminiscent of one movie in particular that I can think of that it really reminds me of. But I thought it was great, and there's some cool. There's a character arc that gets tied up that's really sort of heartrending.
Yeah,
and it's also sort of a decision moment, I guess, for Uhura, because she's finished up her cadet rotation on the Enterprise, and they're having a send-off party and some things like that. So it's just incredible. So I'm going to do a quick first impression too of episode 10, then we can get into in depth on both of them.
Okay.
Episode 10 was unbelievable. I mean, it took me through the whole gamut of emotions, and by the end of it, and well, there'll be a spoiler. I'll save that is, but we get an appearance from a Star Trek character that we haven't seen before. But I was at the last like 10 minutes or so, I was crying. I had tears rolling down my cheeks. It was incredibly good, and it answered a question that you had right up from the beginning of the series, right?
Yeah.
At least for me. So I think that one is. I mean, they saved the best for last, as far as I'm concerned. The whole series is incredible, but this one was another level even. What about you?
10 was incredibly emotional. It made me feel like nobody else now could ever play Christopher Pike other than Anson Mount. He really, really, really did an awesome job in this episode, and just the different. He almost had to play different characters in a way, and just pulled it off very subtly, but very, very convincing and believable. He's such a great Chris Pike. That everything that he had to go through in this episode, everything that he had to deal with in this episode, he's just he's my favorite Starfleet captain, I think. Everybody's a fan. Everybody's a fan of James Kirk and some of those, but he's really, really found his place in the Star Trek mythos with this series, and the last episode 10, just drives that home, I think.
Yeah. So let's jump back to episode 9 then. All those who wonder. So what alien race do we run into once again?
All right, spoilers from here on out, everybody. So
yep, spoilers.
We're dealing with the Gorn, who are well known in Star Trek, the Star Trek universe, but they've never been presented in this way, I don't think. Or you never. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, in the episode Arena from the original Star Trek, where the sort of superior alien race throws the captain of the Gorn ship and Kirk on this planet just to see what happens, I guess, thinking that they're also violent, and then whoever wins, and then the other one they're going to kill.
Yeah.
And the Gorn in that one is just humanoid lizard man, kind of.
Yeah, that kind of.
And we've heard La'an talk about the Gorn before, and we saw the Gorn ships earlier in the series, right?
Yeah.
In this, and they were crazy and ruthless, and La'an's family was killed by the Gorn. So this was really cool, and we got some cool mythology backstory.
Yeah. Well, yeah, with the original Gorn were, like you said, a humanoid race, and so, but we know very little about their background and how Gorn came to be, or how they reproduce, and what their motivations were, or anything like that. But we learned a lot in this one. We learned how their reproductive cycle is, how they're born. They're not only that, but they're how they come to dominate one another. If there's 2 or 3 born, one will try to dominate the other 2 until they're both dead. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This is the biggest homage to the movie Alien and the Alien films, but done in a Star Trek way. And it was an amazing episode watching, and gory and slimy and horrific. You had the Gorn eggs somehow come aboard the ship, and the team is trying to what was the name of that ship? I can't remember
the Peregrine.
Yeah, they there was a few people on there, survivors, and some of them were infected with Gorn eggs, which you come to find out how the eggs are spread. Jeff, you want to tell everybody how that?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's one point where they're battling, and the Gorn, spits this green stuff on Hemmer, and you think it's just like acid or poison or something because it's painful and everything, but it turns out that's actually how they reproduce, is spewing that stuff, and that implants eggs in Hemmer.
Yeah. So then the eggs burst forth from whatever the host is and murder everything in sight until until there's only one Gorn left. And it was just amazing to see that. It was a very well written episode, and you were scared for the crew. I mean, the crew they were fighting off these aliens one by one, these Gorn, and it was just great. I thought it was a white knuckler. I mean, you're like, but a lot of the tropes of maybe the Alien movies, the Predator movies come to mind in this episode, because they sort of see an infrared spectrum, and sort of the same creaky, croaky voice like a Predator uses. So yeah, it was just a great episode.
Well, for me, they look totally different. Like they start off like, a variation on, looking a little bit like the variation, like the humans when they burst out of out of their hosts, but they grow really fast and they molt, and in a very short period of time, the one is about the size of a dog, I guess, and it's on all fours. But one of the things we don't know is La'an's telling everybody this about how it works and how they come out, and they're so antagonistic and need to exert dominance. And she calls these in-between ones the Younglings, and then says if any of these reach adult status, we'll all be dead. We won't have a chance. So we don't know yet what the adults look like. The adults may end up bipedal. I don't know.
Maybe. And they're smart enough to drive starships and everything as adults. Right. So,
and they talk about breeding planets or breeding zones too, or and so I don't know. One of the flaws, or one of the things that I had a question about, and so when I rewatched it, I was looking for this, was if they fight each other until there's only one left, that doesn't say much for the existence of the race.
Right.
I think they're hatched like in small bunches, and then I think that
maybe dominance, the breeding planet or breeding are able to separate them or something like that. That's what I got from it.
Kind of what I was hoping on it, and I think we'll find more out about them later on. But they're obviously very vicious. They totally trash this other crew that was on the ship originally. So yeah, they were awesome, and there's just enough resemblance, in the head. I thought, the head had a little bit of resemblance to the Gorn from the original Star Trek. So, I'll buy that.
Yeah.
I don't really want them to be, and they're very fast. I don't want them to be this lumbering thing like they had on the original. Like a
slee stack.
Yeah. So it's cool. They come up with a whole set of physical characteristics and everything, and it's very neat. I know there's one Was it in this one or the other one? Oh, in this one, Ortegas refers to Hemmer as a blue meanie. So
Yeah.
I sort of dug
I
that.
thought of you when I thought of you.
Yeah, I know. When have there been a Beetle reference on Star Trek? So he's an Andorian, and I don't know if how far we want to go on this, but so the episode opens with they're having a celebration for Uhura and Cadet Chia, who have just completed their cadet rotations on the Enterprise. And Uhura's telling everybody she's leaving, going home.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't feel like she belongs, and Hemmer kind of has this little talk with her about how she fears being the one that's left behind and doesn't like to make relationships. And in an earlier episode, Hemmer says, you got to find your purpose in life, and his purpose in life was to fix things that are broken.
Yeah.
And so at the end, you realize she's gonna, it ends with her standing on the bridge looking at the comms station.
Mm-hmm.
And she's made a decision to stay. They don't come out and say it, but you can just see it. It was a touching scene.
Yeah. And it was do we want to spoil what happened to Hemmer, or did we?
Yeah, sure. This was a big deal, but
yeah, it's you. For the most part, in shows like this who have characters, they don't, and especially Star Trek and stuff like that. If they had a red shirt on, you knew they were doomed. But
he was wearing a red shirt too.
He was wearing a red shirt. But I felt like I thought Hemmer would stay around for a while. He had to sort of, once he was infected with those eggs. I was really starting to like him a lot. And then he had to sacrifice himself to destroy the eggs he was infected with. Not before saving everybody else, though. He was able to save everybody, the rest of the crew. And so it was a pretty good way to go, I thought, for him. I still would have wanted to see him stick around a little bit longer. I was really liking. Yeah. I liked his sense of humor, his dry sense of humor, and I thought him and Uhura made like a really good team. Mm-hmm. In previous episodes, so I really hated to see him go.
Yeah, me too. But it was really well written, like everything in this series.
Yeah.
And
it didn't feel cheap. It didn't feel cheap at all. But yeah, very well written, very, very well acted too. Like I said, he was just a character, one of those characters that I kind of came to love over the course of this series.
Well, he was a really interesting character because he was blind, but he had a certain amount of telepathy.
Mm-hmm.
And he also was a pacifist, though.
Yeah.
Like he would do things to protect the crew, but he wouldn't, he was anti-violence, I guess. So
yeah.
It was an interesting thing to do on the Star Trek as the engineer too. So, and they were setting the stage for this way back when the other episode where he told her, she was asking about his purpose and that kind of stuff. And so this thing was well plotted out the whole season. With storylines that intertwined and connected and then came back into prominence. So I loved it. And I have no doubt we'll see more Gorn.
No doubt about it. Yeah. I think they're going to be one of the more popular things about the show from here on out and pose a pretty good threat, I think. Who knows how they'll act or react to some of their offspring being killed or destroyed or something like that. So yeah, you can kind of see where the storylines might go there.
Well, and then who is it? It's the doctor, I guess. When they get this distress signal of this peregrine that crashes on this planet that has this charged ions in the atmosphere that prevents communications from working. And so a couple of shuttles go down while the Enterprise goes off to finish another Priority 1 mission. And so while they're down there, the way they got the Gorn was these 3 characters that were castaways that were taken on by the ship. And there's this little girl is the only one left, and she's not infected. Yeah. And La'an is kind of bashing her. I think was her name Oriana or something. Yeah, La'an's getting on her case,
It should have been
kill him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is kind of. But then the doctor talks to her and gets her to see that, she's a lot like you. She's lost. She's in this place. And these other people are dying around her from the Gorn. And she just needs somebody to help her out and show her the way or the light or something. I can't remember exactly how he says it. Well, at the end of the show, we learn that La'an has asked for leave to take this girl and find her parents. And Pike, of course, says, "Go ahead, take all the time you need as long as you come back to us."
Yes,
that was cool too. Yeah. A lot of good emotional stuff in these last 2 episodes. So let's double over to episode 10 again, and I'm already forgetting the title of that. Quality of Mercy.
Quality of Mercy.
Yeah. So I don't know. So one of the things I wondered right off the beginning from this is Pike has seen his future from the time crystals on the Klingon monks. And he's told that he cannot change that future. But everybody around him starts to tell him, "Oh, come on, you have the right to make decisions and do what you can to change it." So and he meets up one of the guys that's going to die, and that leads him to he's going to start writing letters to all of them and tell them not to be there on that day. Right.
Right.
And then boom, his future self pops in with a time crystal from the monks. For current day Pike to travel and see what happens.
Right.
And so it answers that question, because right off the bat, when you find out something about somebody sees their future, you're right away thinking, well, they could change it. Why don't you change it? Try to change it. It's like going in the past and on time travel ones and try to change it. So this answers that question, right?
Yeah.
At least to me it did.
Well, it gave him a reason too to not change it. I mean, I know everybody knows what Pike's fate is, but you don't want it to happen. I don't want it to happen because I like him in this series now. So it gave a good reason why for him to not try to change it. And it was a reason that made sense. And it the way the show was written, it really showed what would happen to a lot of different characters and a lot of different scenarios if he did change it. And I love the way the time crystal just puts him right there. And the way Spock just kind of like accepts that right away, and kind of agrees to help him out.
Well, he has to get him to do a mind meld before he can prove to him I'm really that guy, which he does to his future self. Hey, I've been around long enough to know I'm not just going to believe anybody that shows up and says their future me.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny, but kind of true. So, he goes to the future. He finds out, where's La'an, and then he meets another key Star Trek character to the Enterprise. Who's that? Who shows up?
James Kirk. And
So that was interesting. I was
I
okay
can't
with that
remember
guy.
what was the name. I get mixed up on the ships.
The Farragut.
The Farragut. All right, that's what
Yeah,
Kirk was captain.
he's on the Farragut, and apparently Lon is on the Farragut now.
Mm-hmm.
We're like 7 years in the future or something like that, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And Spock's his number one. Una Chin Riley he asked somebody where she is, and they go, well, you know. And
yeah.
he pretends like he knows, and then Spock tells him she got arrested for being what do they call it, genetically enhanced Illyrian.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she's been in prison for like 7 years under solitary confinement.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all kinds of this stuff that's happened, and it's really cool. And it's a good strategy one too, like the old Star Trek would always have these battle strategies where you're trying to outthink people. And
yeah.
I thought it was really good. Him and Kirk were opposing a little bit, and
it sort of showed the difference between Pike and Kirk and how they command their ships, where Kirk's a little more fly by the seat of your pants and take chances, and whereas Pike is a little more reserved, and I think Pike relies a little bit more on his crew to gather information from everybody, to get everybody's input before he makes a decision on anything. So it really showed their two personalities. Even though I thought the actor playing Kirk looked nothing like William Shatner. I mean, Shatner's a stout little fire plug of a guy, and this guy's a thin, muscular guy with angular features.
He had a couple lines in there that made me think of like they might have been spoofing Shatner's acting style. Because when they
threw some of that in.
They first do the visual, and Spock says something that we've analyzed a way to figure out where this cloaked Romulan ship is, and he goes, I forget what he says, something like, "Thank you, Mr. Spock," with that pregnant pause that Shatner would always throw in there, or "Very astute of you, Mr. Spock."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I picked up on a couple of times he did that. It was,
and there was a couple of times where he got a little over dramatic, about the argument. But the thing that's cool about it is, so Pike knows the future, right? So he kind of knows what he did. So in order to change it, he's got to try to do something else. And so they tell him, this is the future of if he sent this letter off and none of these cadets are there.
Yeah. But he's trying to figure out what that is.
Yeah, what's the
moment?
And it's one of those things where everything he does makes sense in terms of sort of a higher philosophy, I guess, or a higher calling, fighting for things, but it didn't work out with his the enemy that he had. Yeah. So anyway, made things a lot worse. So that was very, very cool.
Yeah.
And we got another throwback for me at the very end of the episode. He sits down with Kirk and goes, "Tell me about yourself." "Well, I grew up in Iowa," which I don't remember what show we were doing, but I kept trying to throw that in there. James D. Kirk was from Iowa. Everybody was talking over me, but
I remember. We also got a few little cameos, maybe not on screen, but we got to hear Scotty's voice.
Yes.
That was awesome. There. That was really cool.
I'm an engineer, not a miracle worker.
Yeah.
That was really might have been just a little pander, but it was awesome. I like that.
Yeah, it was. But they had to stick him in there though. But it made sense to the story.
Yeah. We don't see him; we just hear the Scottish accent of scene. So there's very drastic things happen to Spock and to some of the other people, and this big war where millions of people are killed, and he realizes he gets back to his regular time and deletes his messages. But then Spock comes in, and that was a very heartfelt scene. That was amazingly written, I thought. Where Spock comes in and says, Kirk or Pike says, "I'm really glad to see you," and he goes, "Well, I was just here a few minutes ago."
Yeah. Yeah, he says something to the effect that something must have happened. That's why you're glad to see me. Or
Yeah,
something
did
like that.
something happen? And Pike says something like, "Well, I don't know." He says something that gives reference to and without really saying it. And Spock says, "I have the feeling that I owe you a debt of gratitude."
Yeah,
and,
that's what he said.
and then tells him how much he cares for him, and Pike
Mm.
returns the statement.
Mm.
And just when you think it's going to end on a happy note.
Right. Was it Lon? Was it Lon?
Well,
Or
it's
no,
his
it was
other
his other. What was her name?
the woman, Captain Patel from the first episode.
Right.
She was with him when he was on Earth before they called him up.
Yeah. And I think the reason it sort of implied that the reason that she's there is because he's there.
Yeah.
Sort of that she
happened to be in
come
the
with
area,
him.
and they give her the order to.
Yeah. So
come
they
and
beam
arrest him.
aboard. She beams aboard with a couple of red shirts and arrest Una, and for being an enhanced. So he's sort of now that's coming true, and he goes, "This isn't over," and sort of stares menacingly into the camera, almost breaking the fourth wall a little
Yes,
bit.
he does.
Which
The
I just
last
thought that
line
was
is, "This isn't over," and then he's looking. Yeah, he's just staring right into the camera. So that'll be
also
another.
letting the audience know that there's going to be another season, I guess.
Yeah.
At the same time.
No, I'm looking forward to that. I hope geez. So I'm gonna go back and rewatch the old episode because they keep doing these like takeoffs of it. There was one place in this episode where they were in battle, and there was a little, like in horror movies where they have the little 4-note danger warnings. They had a thing like that I thought, battle with the Romulans. It was like, oh wow, that was part of the score for the old series. So
and we also get to see them in this episode. And
yes.
And to everyone's shock, how much they look like Vulcans. Everybody was sort of taken aback by that, and everybody's kind of looking at Spock like, "What?" And even I think he was he a little shocked too that they were.
Did he know what they did it? And apparently, in reading about this, and I didn't catch it at the time, this is a alternate timeline of the original Star Trek episode "Balance of Terror," where there's a Romulan conflict or battle. So I've got to go and watch that now because I didn't catch up on it all. Where everything is switched, where Kirk is the commander and he has to decide what to do, and some people get hurt and that kind of thing. So, and it says that the final words that the Romulan commander said to Pike are the same words the Romulan commander spoke to Kirk in Balance of Terror. So I'm trying to remember that. I just am not.
I'll have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, I am too.
But it was cool that nobody knew what the Romulans looked like, and until they made themselves known in this episode. So you had, and the reason they were at war, they had been almost forgotten. They just knew Romulans were at war with Starfleet and everything. To know. So then the one captain of the Romulan ship sort of, he goes, "You know what? You're correct. We don't even, there's no reason for us to fight anymore. I'm tired of fighting, and I'm tired of," and so he tries to make peace, but one of his one of his subordinates ends up mucking that up pretty bad.
Yep.
So,
It was also kind of cool when the future future Pike was an admiral, and he had a uniform like from Wrath of Khan.
Yes.
Admiral from some of the Star Trek movies. So maintaining a little bit of continuity with the uniforms. Well, let's wrap this up. What I don't know if you have a talk about each episode in turn. Final thoughts, favorite scene, and a score. So, what about episode 9? The Gorn episode.
Episode 9 was the chest burster or back burster scene. That creature that was housing the Gorn was very well done special effect or makeup effect. That was very well done, and you did not expect that.
But it was a really interesting creature too, because it had those two things on its head, and it was breathing there because they went up and down with his breath. So that was an interesting idea.
That was a very cool alien. So that was my favorite scene. I'm gonna stick with a 4 point. I think I've been giving them 4.5s up to this point, waiting for something better to come. I'm gonna give this one a 4.75. Just because it's the horror aspects, the monsters and the gooiness and the almost TV type gore and everything was just had the little monster kid in me jumping for joy. But jumping over to episode 10, that's my number 5. That's my 5-star one. Just because there was so much going on with Kirk and the crew, and it sort of melded the two crews from the old Star Trek and the new, sort of showing the beginnings of the Enterprise crew that we know and love. That's going to be my 5-star episode. And my favorite scene, it's a hard one. It's a hard one. It has to be. I've really, really enjoyed the discussion with future Pike and modern Pike, or modern day Pike. I thought that was really well done, and it was very cool to see how Anson Mount, he acted different. He acted more weather beaten, and more wise, but the way Anson Mount conveyed that in not so many words, but just his facial expressions and the way he would walk and act I just thought was masterful. I just think he is doing such a smash up job as Chris Pike in this show. He's really making that character his own, and I really like him. And so my favorite scene was that exchange between those two at the beginning, and then again at the end was just a great emotional scene for me.
And then did you give one for 9?
The chest burster.
Oh, the chest, okay.
Or side burster, wherever it bursts from. That's
gotcha. All right. So I'm going to give what I'd rather do is like give 9 a 5 and give 10 a 6 or something, I'm going to crank the volume up to 11, because it's just, God, it's so good. But that's probably what I would do too, 4.75 and a 5. I don't, the writing is so good, and the story arcs are so well laid out, and the acting is good, and the effects are pretty good. And one of the things we didn't talk about, and I'm going to give this my favorite scene, is at the end of episode 9 when Spock hugs Nurse Chapel, or actually the other way around.
Yeah.
Because Spock has to Spock has to provoke the Gorn by being aggressive and mad at him, and it doesn't fit his logical side. So he has to like release the human, I guess, kind of. And he has a hard time pulling it back in. And so she catches him bashing his fist into the wall. And goes up to give him a hug, and he finally hugs her back. And it was a really touching scene, and a step in their, development or friendship, Episode 10, it's hard to do a favorite scene. I don't know. I really like the scene that was sort of the false ending, where he's gone back, he's resigned to his fate. He's back on his own ship. He knows everybody. He doesn't have to try to figure out what's going on. And there's this kind of almost like a cheesy romantic doo-wop song kind of playing in the background. And he walks in and he just takes a walk around the bridge, smiling at everybody. And Uhura is looking at him like, what's up with you? And before somebody says so-and-so's here and wants you and O'Reilly in the transporter room. But I love that scene because that was, it said a lot about what was going on and what the series had been about so far. Anyway, love this show. Now I guess I got to go back to the original one, or maybe, I don't know.
I've got those episodes saved, so I can go back and watch all the Pike episodes, the pilot, and then later.
Yeah. I did watch those, and it's interesting because I watched like the first 4 or 5 episodes, so I saw the double episode with Pike, or like the pilot, I guess, and then I watched there's another one like that. Then there's a couple that seem normal, and then there's one where it seems like it's probably the first one with Kirk, but it didn't play the first one with Kirk, and their uniforms are a little different. And Spock's eyebrows are just really harsh, and he shouts everything, coming up on this, Captain. It's I don't know. Anyway, we should get going. So I appreciate you doing this, Chad. We started with 4, we ended with 2. Life happens. I feel sorry for them. I know they're going to catch up and join us at some point. But anyway,
there's always a second season.
Yes. Appreciate it, brother. Love you, and we'll talk at you later.
Love you too. Thanks for listening, everybody, and watching.
Yep.
And
if you haven't watched Star Trek, do it.
Yeah, this is an